It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up, you dream? It's your boy Millsy. Back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the commander in front of us on my quest to brew the magic world. As always, that deck list is going to be down in the description for you below, as well as I'd really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, consider checking out the links down in the description. I'd really appreciate it. But today, we are running through Foundations, and today we're going to look at our first commander from Foundations Jumpstart, Shroofus Sproutsire. If you don't remember any of the previous two real Jumpstart sets, not the ones that came out with certain sets, but the kind of Jumpstart and the Jumpstart 2022, both of them spawned a lot of commanders that either were for specific tribes or just cool commanders. In fact, in the coming weeks, we'll talk about a few of those older commanders as well. But Saprolings got a mono green Sapling commander in Shroofus Sproutsire, a 3-mana 1/1 sapling with trample. It says whenever a sapling you control deals combat damage to a player, we make that many sapling tokens. I love the idea of this commander. It feels like kind of what you think from a spore, right? You know, you break the spore and it spores into more, right? I like this. The saplings are easy to make and we can buff them. We're in green. We're in the perfect colors to do that. I also like that Shroofus can become a threat, right? You turn Shroofus into a bigger creature, and then if it hits, it makes saplings, and you start to kind of see this never-ending cycle of making more saplings. In fact, I think it's what, in my opinion, saves this deck a little bit. I think saplings are great, but some of the cheapest ways to make them are on spells. So having Shroofus be able to make them with trample, I feel like helps us a ton in making sure that we're staying going wide. But as far as saplings go, there's a ton of ways to make them. Not a lot of them are made on actual saplings, but that's okay because I don't think it matters at the end of the day. We have something like Bright Cat Badger from Bloomborough Commander. Each fungus and sapling we control can tap for a green mana. That's important because there's a lot of fungi that can make saplings. In the beginning or end step, we make a sapling. That's great. We can also make them on the instant side of Bright Cat Badger. Elvish Farmer in the middle is a card style that you're going to see a lot in sapling decks. It says during your upkeep, you're going to put a spore counter on it, and it normally has two abilities. The ability to remove 3 spore counters on it to make a sapling, or the ability to sacrifice a sapling to do something. So here with Farmer, it's going to take 3 off of it to make sapling, sack a sapling to gain 2 life. You're going to see a lot of these type of effects in the deck. And so basically, we want to be getting them out and letting them grow, right, each turn so that we can take the spore counters off, make, saplings, and keep that engine moving. Michaeloth is a huge upend play. So when it comes in, we can sack a number of creatures, and when we do, we put twice that many counters on it. And beginning of your upkeep, we make saplings equal to the number of counters on Michaeloth, which is great, right? Another way to just blitz in some tokens and get them on the battlefield going. Namada Grove Guardian for 3 mana can make us a sapling, and we can sack a sapling to give all other saplings +1/+1 till end of turn. This is a really good ability because I love the idea of swinging with a board full of saplings, letting a couple of them get blocked and sacking the ones that got blocked to buff the rest of them, and really just like making sure we get damage in. Or on the flip side of that, let's see, we make 4 saplings this turn, we attack, and we use the saplings we just made this turn, right, to basically grow the rest of our saplings. And you can see why that's really important. Also, that Shroofus is a sapling as well. I mean, Shroofus can be grown that way, and it has trample. Psychotrope Thalage and Savage Thalage, same thing. That put a spore counter on it each turn, sack 3 to make a sapling. Psychotrope lets you pay 1 and sacrifice a sapling to draw a card, and Savage Thalage lets you regenerate a fungus. So that can't regenerate Shroofus, but that's okay. There's a lot of fungi that really matter in the deck, and so we like the idea to do that. Spore Mound, whenever a land comes in, we make a sapling. Spore Sower Salad puts a spore counter on each fungus you control, which is really important, right? All of them have these abilities, meaning that now you're spreading twice that many out each turn, right? Gets to our saplings even faster, and all he has is just remove counter summit to make a sapling. Sporolith Ancient, so at the beginning of our upkeep, we put a counter on it, and every creature we control has removed 2 from it to make a sapling. So maybe even reducing it down by 1, which makes the Sporolith a great idea to keep this engine moving. Thalid Devourer can sacrifice a sapling to give it +1/+2 until end of turn, so it can grow itself. Thallid Germinator can sack a sapling to give a creature +1/+1 till end of turn. So that's still nice, I think, for Shroofus, right? So that Shroofus could grow and have trample to get for some damage. Tendershoot Dryad's probably one of our best sapling producers, getting one on the start of everyone's turn, and then as soon as we have the City's Blessing, all of our saplings get +1/+1, or +2/+2. So to grow and make more, Tendershoot Dryad is a card we want to see whenever we can find it. Shell Dweller just has the remove to make a sapling, but it's an 05 defender, so not a bad body. Utopia Mycon can do the same thing for the saplings, but it can sack a sapling to add a mana, so not bad, right, if we need to ramp a little bit. Vitaspore Thallid can give a creature haste by sacking a sapling, so you can start to see where, these toolboxes of abilities on these fungi are really important. Fungal Sprouting can make X saplings, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control. This works really great with the things we're going to talk about on the next slide for growing Shroofus, making Shroofus really big and making tokens based on its power. Life and Limb turns all forests and all saplings into forest sapling 1/1s. So all of our forest becomes 1/1 saplings, and all of our saplings become forest lands. This can help them tap for mana. This can help them get some protection from certain pieces of removal. There's some different ways to do that. But in all reality, it can just turn all of our lands into saplings, or it can just turn all our saplings into lands for more mana. And then Sporogenesis says during our upkeep, we can put a fungus counter on a creature, non-token creature. And it says whenever a creature with a fungus counter on it's put into the graveyard, we make a sapling for each fungus counter that was on it. And then whenever Sporogenesis leaves play, remove all fungus counter small creatures. This works really well because then all of those fungi that are getting their own fungus, or their own counters on them, are actually going to be able to get us some that way. Now, it's only the fungus counters, though, that makes us sapling. So that's the confusion I just realized I have between the spore counters and the fungus counters. But again, the point is, put the fungus counters on those fungi, and then if they die, right, they at least replace themselves in the grand scheme of things. But I think where the deck shines the most is this slide right here. Remember that Shroofus is a 1/1 with trample. So if there's any way to grow it, we can make a ton of saplings with it. Things like Staff of Titania and Blanchwood Armor can give it +1/+1 for each forest you control. So as the game goes on, Shroofus is going to get bigger and bigger. Staff of Titania makes a 1/1 forest dryad whenever it attacks, meaning it'll go up by 1 that way. Blanchwood's just going to care about the number of lands we have. And then Stoneforge Masterwork would give it +1/+1 for each other creature that shares a type with it, which, again, the goal is to get saplings, which could make Shroofus huge. And these 3 cards can give us that commander damage threat for Shroofus instead of just being a go-wide saplings deck. But we are a go-wide saplings deck, which means we're going to do everything we can in Green's power to make that our opponent's problem. Things like Nissa's Ascendant Animus can give all of our creatures +1/+1 for each force we control and trample. Champion of Lambholt can make our creatures unblockable as it grows for a counter for each creature that comes in. Thunderfoot Baloth gives all of our creatures +2/+2 and trample as long as we have our commander out. Again, allowing our saplings to deal damage, get more saplings. Overrun, Overwhelming Stampede, giving creatures a buff and trample. Again, hit opponents, get saplings, they replace themselves, and that's the important part. Banner of Kinship from the new Foundation set. Whenever it comes in, you pick a type. It gets a counter on it for each type of that creature you have, and then those creatures get +1/+1 for each counter on it. Again, we're going to go wide. Banner of Kinship is going to become one of those things that is, one, going to buff Shroofus and get it to be a threat, but also make all of our saplings to be a threat. Coat of Arms, up a similar vein, just giving each creature +1/+1 for each creature that's on the battlefield that shares a type with it. This is going to be bonkers with Saprolings, and definitely one of those cards that's going to help us end a game, because saplings hit, make more saplings, and you can start to see the fun that we're going to have. Dolmen Gate to protect all of our saplings. That way they don't die in combat, and then we can still continue to use them on future turns. Patchwork Banner, giving them all +1/+1 and tapping for mana. Again, I think we care here about the +1/+1 more than we do the mana, but it's nice to have that as an option. Garruk's Uprising, giving them all trample, just that way they can all hit and all get more saplings on damage. And then, of course, the classic Beastmaster Ascension. Whenever a creature we control attacks, you put a counter on it. When it hits 7 or more counters, all of them get +5/+5. I think those slides do a good enough job at what we're trying to demonstrate. Go wide with saps. Saps hit, make more saplings, and just try to do our best to just keep that ball rolling into the mid to late game. But I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. No deck's ever complete. This is my version 1.0 shot at it. And I think a lot of the cards on this screen right here are indicative of how we can make the deck a little bit better. For 2 of these 3 cards, just the cost. For the one in the middle, it was just the slot. I couldn't figure out where to put Second Harvest in. I think it's a card that makes sense. But I wanted to make sure we had enough redundancy of making Saprolings, because I feel like 1 board wipe is going to be a problem in our deck, right? For the cards that flank it, I think neither of these cards would surprise you in a deck like this. Craterhoof is a creature that drops and gives your whole board trample on +X till end turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. It's going to probably end a game on its drop. It's a mono green finisher, and it's beloved for that reason. But we have other things, right? Coat of Arms, Banner of Kinship, Overrun, Overwhelming Stampede. These are all cards that are going to do well as well. We don't need Craterhoof Behemoth to do that for us, but it is an option if you want to put more money into the deck. This is a fairly cheap deck to begin with, but if you want to put that in, you can do that. On the other side, same thing with the Chroma's Memorial that just got that reprint here in the Foundation Special Guest, giving all of our Saplings Flying, First Strike, Vigilance, Trample, Haste, and Pro Black and Red. Again, a way to give them some evasion, make sure they're hitting and making more Saplings under our control. But let's get into our play test. On this first one, we're keeping a 4-lander with Nissa, Voice of Zendikar, which can put a counter on each creature we control if we want to, or it can just make us some tokens. Emerald Medallion for some cost reduction, and that Tendershoot Dryad. So not a bad start. We'll get the Vastwood in turn 1 since it comes in tapped and we're not doing anything else. Turn 2, we draw that Doubling Season. I made sure to spend the higher end cost of the money on something like Doubling Season, because we're making so many tokens, we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of getting more tokens every time that we do. We'll play the Medallion here next turn. I think it's just going to lead just playing Shroofus this turn, but that's okay. It comes down with 1 up. We can either tap the Vastwood to put a +1/+1 counter on it, which I think makes the most sense. Tap that to put a counter on, that way it grows. Might of the Mass is another option for that growing Shroofus, +1/+1 for each creature we control, so we can kind of grow, right, Shroofus to be a bigger threat. Turn 4 here, I think we just play the Dryad, right? Get the Sapling train going. Dryad's one of those cards in this deck where you probably have to just get rid of it as soon as you see it. Otherwise, it's just going to machine out. If we have an attack with Shroofus here, we take it. But otherwise, we just wait. And if nobody has any responses to that Tendershoot Dryad, we're untapping with 3 more Saprolings. And we have the City's Blessing, so they get all of them get +2/+2, including Shroofus, right? Because it's a Saproling. So this is great. I think I'm trying to think. Do I play the Doubling Season and just get to swinging this turn and make a ton of Saprolings, or do go for something like Roller Banner? But I think it's the Doubling Season, right? Because it'll increase the number of counters put on permanent, so that's not what we care about. What we care about is the doubling. So all these are going to attack. Shroofus is a 4/4 with trample. Tendershoot doesn't get his own buff, but sorry, the 3 that would have been out during our opponent's turns are now 3/3s. And if any of them hit, we're making Saprolings. I think it's probably fair that we make at least 3, which is going to make us 6, right? There's a world where we hit more than that. But let's say just conservatively 1 of these 4 hits, and we get a bunch out of it. Now we move to our opponent's turns, and if no one gets rid of the Tendershoot Dryad, we're untapping with 8 more, right? 2 on each turn because of the Doubling Season. And now, in all reality, this is exactly where we want to be, right? We're going to just deal a bunch of damage to our opponents and have some fun. We might have a threat here to knock somebody out with Shroofus, because we have the Might of the Masses to give +1/+1 for each creature we control, which is... Right now it's 18. What I'm going to do, just for the purposes of keeping it right on screen, is 18, right? What we could do is attack with Shroofus. It's a 4/4 right now. Give it the Might of the Masses. Might be able to trample through and combat damage somebody out of the game, right? But I'm thinking Nissa's going to come in with actually 6 loyalty counters because of Doubling Season. Immediately -2 Nissa to give everything a +1/+1 counter. So easiest way to do this? I guess we'll do that. Right. Now, right, Shroofus is a 5/5. We still have enough mana to go ahead and Might of the Masses to knock somebody out with Shroofus, make a ton more Saprolings, probably at least 30 of them. And now our opponents have to do something. Otherwise, we're just getting way out of control. We still have these 18 4/4s right now that are attacking. Again, we might in a world be able to knock somebody out this turn. If we can't, we're putting 2 players out of the game, and we're going to pick the 2 players to knock out of the game. Pick the player you think won't have the best chance to kill you and the least, that has the least chance to kill you is the one to save alive. And they better have a board wipe, otherwise this game's over. If they do wipe the board, well, we could just, get Shroofus back down, use Nissa to make a couple tokens and just build Shroofus back up. But I think this goes to show you what Shroofus, a deck like this could do when we get the right things and it gets left alone. Here we're keeping a 4-land with Blanchwood Armor and that Stoneforge Masterwork, and then Echoing Courage, where target creatures and all other creatures with the same name get +2/+2. Again, the goal there is for our tokens, right? Give all the tokens that buff. Turn 1, I guess we could have played that Masterwork. Turn 2, I don't think we have any other good options, but Brightcat Badger can come down for 3, so it can come down next turn. And I think it makes sense to do now, because we make the Saproling, right, on our end step, and then Saprolings could start tapping for mana. So that gives us the option to do some more of that, right? Turn 4, we do have 5 mana total because this can tap for the 5th. We can get Shroofus down, or we could get something like Gauntlet of Power down. This is going to start doubling up our forests and give all of our green creatures +1/+1, which I think makes sense. Instead, we'll get another Saproling. Again, I don't mind delaying Shroofus here because we're getting the setup so that this turn we now have 10 green mana here with the Gauntlet. And 12 there, and up to 12 there. Right, so we've got 12 mana this turn, 3 for Shroofus. Thinking 6 for Namada. That's 9. I've got 3 left here and then there, so that's 5. Put the Stoneforge on Shroofus, and then make another Saproling with Namada. Make a Saproling and end step since Shroofus came in this turn. Now we're building up the board, right? We're getting the party going. We could put the Blanchwood here on Shroofus if we wanted to. Shroofus right now is a 5/5. Blanchwood would make it a 10/10. A way to get a bunch more Saprolings. That was just 3, so we've got 7 left here and then 4 Saprolings. I think I would just go what? So I said I had 7 left here and 4 Saprolings. So that's 11. But let's use 9 of it just to make 3 more Saprolings with Namada. Or we could sack a Saproling to give all of them +1/+1. Go to combat, less Shroofus attack. We could sack a couple of the ones that just came in to give it +1/+1, because remember, they'll replace themselves. Otherwise, Shroofus right now is a 2. 2 because of Gauntlet. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 with Trample. It's just going to net us a ton of Saprolings, Bright Clap, and now we're getting an astronomical amount of Saprolings. Remember, we could sack them to give the other ones +1/+1. So if no one deals with our board, back on our turn, we just untap and we swing. We've still got 10 mana, and Namada can use its ability instant speed. We have the Echoing Courage to give them all +2/+2, and then if any of them get blocked, we could just sack them to give each of them the rest of ones +1/+1 until end of turn. And again, probably knock 2 players out here. Shroofus may be able to knock somebody out with commander damage this turn without having dealt them last turn. And again, here's another board state that you just got to worry about. Remember, this is no trample. There's no trample on this board right now except Shroofus. But it just goes to show you that if you can take this wide enough by getting enough mana, now your opponents have to deal with this. Think about this with a Beastmaster Sentry. Think about this with a Coat of Arms or something like that out, and how brutal this board state would be. And all we did was play Brightcat Badger and Namada and put some mana into them to make these tokens. I really like these fungi guys that make Saprolings, but it almost makes me feel like there's probably a world where we don't play any of them and just find more ways to make saprolings. But I think we could focus even more on Shroofus, like buffing Shroofus just to make saprolings. I think there's a world where you could just do that, right? But I'm not sure. I mean, that's the problem with a deck like this is I still think you want to well round your strategy and not just dump yourself into just one, because I think it'd be easy just to call this a Voltron deck with Shroofus, and then as soon as Shroofus gets removed twice, now you're paying 7 mana for it, and are you really able to sustain? I mean, I think that's where the question comes down. Is what does that look like? But I think you could cut some of these fungi, add in more of the add in the Cage Suns, add in the for some extra doubling there, add in more straight up buffs for Shroofus. I think there's, like I said, there's other ways to look at this, and I think it's just really good for the start it's at. There's a lot of ways you could make this even better. And I think if you're looking for a mono green deck that's not going to be like a lot of other mono green decks you're going to see, I think this is a good option. So let me know, what do you think of Shroofus down in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys next time.